Okay, I have a video that had been on my mind for months, and I apologize for not putting this video out as planned since this spring. And I want to talk about for anyone who's a fan of pro wrestling. If you saw on the community tab for my videos, not my channel, I messed up. On my community tab, not so long ago, back in April or May of this year, I had made it clear that I wanted to put out a video talking about my current status as a pro wrestling fan outside of me as a Power Rangers fan. But as someone who does mostly Power Ranger videos and fan films, I do want to talk about what's been up to date with my fandom of wrestling, mainly WWE. I want to talk about WWE since it's already been past the point when I was supposed to put that video out a while ago. But I also want to add a little tidbit about a certain wrestler whose face I featured on the thumbnail for the video, but I know this is going to get some heat in the comments and stuff, and when I get to certain tangents. So you should know that in the beginning of 2022, I made it clear on my personal social medias of Facebook and Twitter. If you haven't been following me on Twitter, even though I haven't been using Twitter as often because I'm always on Facebook, this, and Instagram. Those are the only social medias I do. I do not do TikTok. I do not do Snapchat or Reddit. I have Tumblr, but I haven't got started posting anything on Tumblr. WWE, I had been a fan since the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression. I did watch a bit of the PG era WWE for years. But then I have to talk about something that had been alarming me. And I've been waiting 2 long years now to make this little rant. Why I wait this long to do a rant about what happened 2 years ago when WWE's show tapings for NXT, Raw, and SmackDown had the no fans arena thing, and then the stuff with Randy Orton. And if you know, that's why this is the topic of the video. I made it clear in the beginning of 2022 on Facebook and stuff, I repeat, I am no longer a fan of pro wrestling, especially WWE. Let's face it. I felt like now that I'm 30 years old, being a 90s, 2000s kid, with the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression and all that now, even though that's the past, but after many years of watching wrestling, I felt like it was time for me to grow up. It's time for me to move on from wrestling. I know some of my Facebook friends and stuff are still WWE fans. That's them. And I have a family member or so that still watches wrestling. That, good for them. For me, I made it clear when I told a family member last month that I am no longer watching wrestling. I don't care about AEW. I don't care about it. The streaming service I'm using to watch anything that's not TV and film, like Hulu, doesn't have AEW. I know AEW's on TNT or TBS. So therefore, I can care less about AEW and how it's doing so much better than WWE in the ratings and viewership and all that and fandom. I have now made it clear I am no longer following anybody specific from WWE or any pro wrestler from any other wrestling franchise promotion like Impact or AEW on social media. I am slowly distancing myself from the pro wrestling fandom. I am already aware that Vince McMahon 2 months ago had announced his retirement from being chairman of WWE in August, or was it July? One of them. But I just don't care anymore. Basically, the reason I'm bringing this up and why I feel like WWE is dead to me, because the thing is, you can feel the anger in this video and in the anger in my hands, in the expression of my face, because I'm not doing this for shits and giggles and all that. I wanted to make clear that I've been wanting to make this video for 2 years since the COVID-19 pandemic started to take effect, and the last time I would watch any WWE until it was time for me to retire as a pro wrestling fan. Because the thing is, WWE was so good to me for years, but now to the point as I grew older, I just don't find it worthwhile to watch anymore. And it's not because, the women's division and how much I don't like certain female talent like Sasha Banks, because honestly, anytime I hear a theme song or see her face and that boss time and all of this with her, honestly, I don't like her. Fuck Sasha. Charlotte, I don't like her either. But there's other talent that I didn't like over the last couple years when watching WWE. I didn't like Kevin Owens when he was wrestling in WWE. I used to do a video about him in 2015, but I don't think no one cared. The last time I talked about anything wrestling was 7 years ago in late August, early September of 2015 on this channel, doing a review video on the Terra Venture podcast talking about SummerSlam 2015, specifically mainly bragging about Undertaker and Brock Lesnar's rematch from WrestleMania from the year before, 2014, WrestleMania 30. That was the last time I would touch anything WWE related on a Power Ranger YouTube channel for those who are not versed with it, like someone said in the comments in my Remembering Daphne video. Speaking of that, another reason why I am no longer a pro wrestling fan is because some of the wrestlers like Daphne that I used to like, but even though some of them were very undervalued and underrated talent, had recently passed away within these last few years, including Razor Ramon, who passed away earlier this year. So that's another reason why I can care less about wrestling anymore. And especially if you saw my Daphne memorial video last September on this channel. And I talked about Daphne a bit for those who didn't understand, given my history with the performer. Personally, then also my taste in things have changed. You know, I've been playing more video games. I've been getting a little bit into esports, but I don't do esports personally, but I watch some people do esports on like Call of Duty or GTA and all, but I'll talk about Grand Theft Auto, another vlog later. And what I've been up to all year 2021 last year with Grand Theft Auto Online later. I no longer want to play another WWE video game, even if we got the new WWE 2K22, which came out earlier this spring in April. Even though usually WWE, when they put a new video game out, it's always the same time when Activision put out a new Call of Duty, and 2 months earlier, EA Sports would put out the next Madden. Remember, for those who didn't know, and for someone who didn't caught up with WWE video games in so long, WWE 2K20 in 2019 caused the WWE 2K game franchise to go on a 2-year hiatus. Due to the fact, 2-3-year hiatus, due to the fact that 2K20 was universally panned because of the glitches and the stuff that was going on with 2K20 when the game was originally out in 2019 on all platforms. That would explain why we haven't had a new WWE annual game in 3 years until 2K22 earlier this year. We didn't have a 2K21. Instead, we had WWE 2K Battlegrounds, which I did play a little bit in 2021 last year, until it was time for me to grow out of playing WWE games. Because personally, it's not because wrestling is fake. It's not because it's scripted. It's not because... It's just the thing is, I grew bored of how wrestling, mostly WWE, had gotten to me the more I watched it. And I started to see the repetition get on my fucking nerves. And now, if you like WWE, more power to you. And same go for AEW or whatever wrestling thing you're into. Or all three, or all of wrestling. But personally, I got exhausted with wrestling. I got exhausted with WWE. Really bad. And I just cannot put this in words, because personally, I really needed to grow out of the wrestling fandom thing, because I know I have a few of those who I'm friends with on social media that likes wrestling, unless if you're mainly an Attitude Era fan that's into back when Stone Cold and The Rock and them was wrestling, which that was my WWE. And Ruthless Aggression, even back when I didn't care about John Cena, when John Cena and his "you can't see me" and all of that all the time. But honestly, that era is gone. Now you're in an era where you have talent like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins still, but then you also have new talent I don't care 2/3 a fuck about, that's now in NXT, that has come to the main roster of WWE, Raw, and SmackDown in the last 2 to 3 years, 4 years even, because The reason I stopped watching wrestling was because a few of my friends and family members had stopped watching wrestling, and even though my brother, who I live with, last time my brother cared about wrestling was sometime before he found out in realization that wrestling is scripted and fake. Well, no fucking shit, it is not real and fake, but even though when I get to when I'm going to talk about Randy Orton in a couple of minutes, I really fucking kept watching because even when my dad was still alive with watching WWE until his death 7 years ago around this time, I was still, even after his death, I was still watching WWE through my brother's Hulu account. Back when WWE still had a contract with Hulu to stream all of Raw and SmackDown, and even back when WWE Network was still a thing, but now Peacock streams WWE content since the WWE Network folded in 2021 last year. I used to subscribe to WWE Network as soon as it launched back in 2014 and up until sometime in 2015. But afterwards, I had stopped watching WWE Network because how much of a waste of money spending $9.99 a month on the content that they got for all those old SmackDown episodes, all those Raw episodes, old pay-per-views, and even current stuff and exclusive content. But it go to show WWE Network was a waste of money on that company's behalf. I liked it back in 2014 and 2015, but after 2015, I realized how much a waste of money and time that service really, really was. So that's another factor why I stopped. I honestly, when I go on social media, still in 2022, even when I stopped watching WWE regularly, and or just stopped watching entirely, I still keep seeing posts of what wrestlers like Alexa Bliss or whoever, Seth Rollins and whoever, Becky Lynch and them are doing, Liv Morgan even, and even Bobby Lashley, because honestly I can care less what they do on wrestling. On WWE. I don't care what goes on at NXT, given NXT is a totally new thing, and they went from being yellow branded to now a multicolor, random amount of rainbow splash, graffiti color brand now of NXT. SmackDown over the years, let's face it, in all the years I've been watching SmackDown, when it'd be Thursday Night SmackDown, Friday Night SmackDown over the years, SmackDown had been on numerous networks to the point they couldn't even find a consistent home for it. Like, I remember back in the day, SmackDown used to be on UPN, back when UPN was still a thing, Channel 20. But when UPN folded in 2008, then they moved to the CW. Or was it, well, did do SmackDown on My Network TV? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if I'm correct, mistaken. But then they moved to the CW sometime in 2008, and then 2009 until somewhat 2011, 2012. They had SmackDown on the CW. And then in 2014, 15 or so, SmackDown will be on Sci-Fi on Thursdays, some Fridays, but then Thursdays. And then USA Network in 2017 or so, until 2019, it was on USA on Fridays, while Monday Night Raw has always been consistently on USA for the last now almost 30 years. And then now 2019, around this month, 3 years ago in 2019, SmackDown would make its debut on Fox, the main Fox channel, Channel 5, where, you know, the same Fox network that has shows like Bob's Burgers, The Simpsons, 911 Lone Star, and those shows on, you know, that Fox, you know, with WWE's Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. I only watched SmackDown last year in 2021, and when I get to the point of my hatred for the Viper, the RKO, the Legend Killer himself. Because I've made this clear on social media. I know I'm going to get some heat for this, and I know that YouTube is not going to like what I'm going to say about Randy Orton as a former WWE fan. And I know there's going to be some, and spoiler, viewers' discretion advised, there's going to be a topic about domestic violence in this video. And I know that while WWE may be fucking scripted and shit, but from an experience I had, and I've been waiting 2 long years for this video to be made, even during the pandemic. And for someone who never was a Randy Orton fan, honestly, I wanted to talk about why I stopped watching WWE and what led to me to make this video and say some horrible, horrible things about Randy Orton in a rant. Although I don't know him personally, I don't care to know him personally, or any WWE talent personally, besides who I see on TV or on action figures or video games. You know, back in 2019, I was on a frenzy of watching a lot of Monday Night Raw and NXT to catch up on Hulu. Up until October, when SmackDown moved to Fox, I was trying to keep up with what was going on Monday Night Raw in 2019 with stuff with Rusev, Lana, and Bobby Lashley, and that storyline with those three. And then Liv Morgan and her main roster debut at the end of the decade, going into this decade of WWE, when the Big V happened, and later on the Thunderdome, but still the Big V, and then 2021 when everyone was fully vaccinated, and so they would allow fans to come back to arenas, in show again, touring, but they still have to be precautious with COVID. But back in 2020, a lot of you who don't know, or what if you didn't know what was going on in 2020 with wrestling and WWE, I've been saying this on Facebook. I was saying this a little bit to some people via DMs on Facebook, not Facebook, Instagram about it, and even in a Facebook group. Even though I'm trying to distance myself from being in any wrestling-related Facebook groups now because I'm divorcing myself from wrestling fandom. Back in 2020, as much as I got sick of the Brock Lesnar shit, I got sick of Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar all the time. It was fine with Brock back in 2014 and 15 and shit, but as time went on, like, how long was Brock Lesnar going to be in an alliance with Paul Heyman, victimizing every man in the male locker room roster of WWE, from John Cena to Randy to Seth Rollins to Dean Ambrose when Dean Ambrose was still in WWE, to, old timers like Goldberg and Bobby Lashley, and even the multiple times Brock Lesnar has fought Roman Reigns. I really got fed up with that stuff. I got fed up with the commentary stuff with Michael Cole. I got fed up with the same repetition of commentary and remarks of wrestlers' nicknames, like I mentioned about Sasha Banks earlier. Sasha Banks being the boss and all of that. But personally, I honestly, now I'm trying to get my thought here because I've been wanting to do this video for 2 years. When Brock Lesnar back at the 2020 Royal Rumble. Once I was watching back one time in 2020, Monday Night Raw televised what happened at this year's that year's Royal Rumble. Not this year, 2 years ago's Royal Rumble. The first Royal Rumble of the 2020 decade. The Royal Rumble, it was a massively big stage for Royal Rumble 2K20. And I honestly did not like, I actually liked the lighting, the atmosphere of the Rumble, and how big the Rumble's stage was, and how big the ramp was, and, with all that red and white lights around it. Brock Lesnar, he got his ass handed by Drew McIntyre because I remember how Drew McIntyre started back in the late 2000s until he left WWE for a number of years, until he came back fully mature and all that. But, Drew McIntyre, how he was back in the day. And I remember how he was in 2009, supposed to be the chosen one, but how he was at the time. But Drew McIntyre is way past that now. But the reason why I'm going backwards 2 years ago, talking about what led me to stop watching, and why I took a long hiatus from it for a while. I liked how Drew McIntyre took Brock Lesnar out because personally, I was already growing to the point once 2020 started, because I hated the 2010s. I hated how things in my life was in the 2010s. Even though I'm no longer 20 years old and all that no more. I'm past that now. Drew McIntyre, when he took Brock Lesnar out and then he got tossed out, but wait until I talk about a certain someone from my past of WWE Hall of Fame talent made his return, and what led to why I'm going to talk about Randy Orton in this video. So once we got to lower into the amount of the 30-man Royal Rumble count, when I heard a certain theme song for a WWE Hall of Famer who I used to like back in the Ruthless Aggression days, back when I wasn't watching a lot of wrestling, when I was a kid and teenager in middle school and high school. Of course, the rated R superstar Edge, aka Adam Copeland, his real name. When, this is something I've been wanting to say ever since 2 years ago, and what I've been wanting to say on the video form, and why I had went down this rabbit hole of now turning against WWE. I heard Edge's theme song play, and when I heard the crowd was wildly loud when he returned after 9 years at the time in 2020, I had a serious bad feeling about this, because I was already at the state of amount of burnout, everything I was into in pop culture personally and what I've been going through in my late 20s, and I was at the peak of my quarter life crisis when this was happening. As soon as when COVID was happening, I was at the peak of my quarter life crisis and depression and everything with that since then. When Edge returned to WWE in 2020, 9 years after he was forced to retire, and I've been saying this before I made this video, I had some serious mixed feelings about that. A part of me was happy he came back, even though it was an unexpected turnaround for him to return in reaction. A part of me was not happy he came back, and he should have stayed retired and not try to break his neck again. See, here's the problem. I know that wrestling is scripted and all of that fucking shit. But the thing is, did Vince call up Edge to come back or what? Because, it was bad enough this was still back in the time when WWE was still TV PG. Because they've been PG rated for 14 years until this point. And you know that in the more recent years, WWE had been bringing back some old favorites that are old as hell, 40s, 50s, 60-year-old wrestlers like Edge and Goldberg. Even though I didn't know who Goldberg was a lot when I was younger. I didn't catch up to Goldberg until this point in my life later. But then and even the Dudley Boys, when they came back in 2015, and then who else they bring back from the Hall of Fame to return for some Hall of Famer storyline and all of that. Because it go to show that Vince, you can tell that Vince was very desperate to get WWE's ratings back up to the roof. Like, as someone who was a fan of people like Edge, why just bring him back for the hell of it? You think bringing him back is going to raise your ratings up again? That just go to show that Vince was totally out of touch. And that's why fans like me quit watching WWE, because the over-reliance of nostalgia, just like a lot of franchises have been lately. A lot of stuff I've been growing up with for years. I don't know why is it that we have to bring back some talent like Edge, knowing he had a broken neck injury. Don't you realize in wrestling, scripted or not, when an athlete has a broken sternum injury, just like what happened to Daphne and what led her to retire from wrestling in 2015 and until her suicide in 2021 last September. So what was the point of having Edge return and risking chances of him breaking his neck again? I'm not talking about what Edge did against Seth Rollins last year. I'm talking about what he did with him and Randy Orton, which is the main meat of this video, because it's something I've been wanting to rant about for 2 years, ever since the pandemic, and ever since I saw the following Monday Night Raw episodes leading to that year's WrestleMania, which I'll discuss in a moment, very much soon, in a moment. There was no need for him to come back. But of course, WWE, it's what's best for business, Triple H from 2014 used to say. I just don't understand why Vince had to bring him back. And that was risky. It was so risky. When that was another thing why some people stopped watching WWE. When you have talent that's more of today, like Seth Rollins or Alexa Bliss or Bayley or Lacey Evans or Ricochet's gone, or Kevin Owens until he left to go to AEW, or Bray Wyatt and when he was the Fiend, and then he went to AEW, and I heard rumors he's gonna come back to WWE, but I don't want to see him back as the Fiend again. And then, of course, Roman Reigns. But when you're supposed to focus on the talent you have now, and even people like, you know, the people that I've seen from, like Finn Balor, even, or Rhea Ripley, or whoever from NXT, WWE, and SmackDown today. Why are you steadily harping on wrestlers of my past and anyone else's past, from Attitude, Ruthless Aggression, early PG WWE, to come back for late PG, modern era WWE? Why are you relying still on that? Like, you think bringing back these old people from my generation of wrestling, knowing they've gotten old as fuck, and knowing those wrestlers should have just stayed the fuck retired? The only times they would come back is unless y'all do your usual annual Hall of Fame ceremony before WrestleMania comes up every fucking year in April. But that's the point. And as March of 2020 was ensuing before April, in the 2 months of March, when COVID was shutting everything down, when the world shut down because of COVID, when I watched the first Monday Night Raw after the Rumble on Hulu, I didn't watch it on broadcast. I don't have cable and satellite TV anymore. You should know that, for those who are unaware, for the last 7 years. At the end of the first Monday Night Raw after the Rumble, after whatever matches with whoever in the women's division, or Seth Rollins or whoever on that night's Monday Night Raw, they did a little welcome back Edge segment to end out that Monday Night Raw. And then here comes this son of a bitch, the Viper, the Legend Killer, the unstoppable snake of a man, Randy fucking Orton. You know, I wish things didn't go out the way it did, but the way how I had a bad feeling about this. Because for someone who is not a Randy Orton fan, when Edge came back on that Raw after the Rumble 2 years ago, I wasn't sure what's going to happen here. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I did not know Randy and Edge had a history. And I know I missed out a lot from the Ruthless Aggression era from the 2000s, 2 decades ago. But I can care less now at this point. I'm not a wrestling fan no more. But I'm just saying this for someone who used to watch wrestling, to make this video about why wrestling to me is dead. But I also want to talk about Randy Orton in the video as the subtopic. When they came up with the Edge and Orton storyline for 2020, it was going to last a while too, even when I stopped watching for the remainder of 2020, which I'll get to momentarily. When Randy Orton showed up to congratulate Edge, but you know, knowing the Viper, villainous as he is on TV, I can't say what he's like in real life, because I can care less about the man. He may be older than me, 10, 11 years older than me, but I can care less of what kind of man he may be in real life compared to what kind of man he is on TV. And honestly, I was already having mixed feelings about his, Edge's return to WWE after 9 years since 2011. That shit really made me so fucking mad. And then once they had Randy come out, that was how the storyline would start. Once Edge comes back at that year's Royal Rumble, then all of a sudden, Randy comes out, he congratulates him and says how much he misses him because we used to have history and stuff, but only for him to turn face on him because, it's part of the whole heel, but even Randy Orton has always been a fucking heel in my book, even though I never really watched anything he's done in WWE, Raw, SmackDown, otherwise. I don't care. My mixed feelings was where Randy would RKO Edge, the RKO where he, takes someone from behind and then slams them to the middle ground of the wrestling mat and stage. Him knocking Edge out, and then try to break his neck with a steel chair. There was some pent up anger, just like the amount of anger I have in this video when I made it. When I made this. Who the hell, other than Vince McMahon, thought that was a good idea to bring Edge back just to get his neck injured again? You think as a longtime WWE fan until 2022 thought, it's great to see Edge break his neck again, come back and get his neck broken, and then he would have nearly died on TV? Like, my goodness, I don't even understand why the hell did they bring him back to get his neck injured and shit. You know, knowing how wrestlers like to fake injuries just so they can excuse themselves to be with their families. Well, I understand. That's understandable. And also if they're doing other side projects like making music or there's a movie they have to film or something with that excuse. Like, of all the times we've seen John Cena do that. Breaking legs and stuff so he can excuse himself out of wrestling to do a movie or something. But Edge, that was just that was unnecessary. And for someone who was an Edge fan, not a fucking Orton fan. And I hated what Randy did to Edge that episode and that taping of Raw. The Monday Night Raw episode 3 weeks before the shutdowns and when they did the empty arena taping, the first Raw of the empty arena taping because COVID was happening. And when I caught up on that episode and then in the 3 Raw episodes leading to WrestleMania and when the world was already shut down and how weird that was going to feel and be. And I did not like how in the week after Randy Orton eviscerated Edge with the steel chair, trying to break his neck, knowing the man had gone through extensive amount of surgeries that make his neck and sternum feel a certain way in order for him to see if he'll ever perform again. It's like old man Edge was asking for it, but no one asked for him. I didn't even ask for this because it just felt like this was Vince's way of telling me, an older fan, to go fuck off and I'm going to do what I want. I don't care. I'm 77 years old. I'm still going to keep making more money and bring some old talent to try to raise the ratings for WWE because, I don't care. I don't give a fuck if the ratings, if the ratings are bad, you know what? You can kiss my ass and shit like that. Vince would probably say to me or any other older fan. The week after that episode of Raw, when it was about the storyline with him and Edge, then there was some person who was kind of like a close friend of Edge. I don't know who that guy was. On the second week of the storyline on Raw, Randy Orton assaults him. What did that guy do to Randy? And even I remember some of the commentators of Raw that time said something about how he's out of control and stuff. But I'm like, but again, it just go to show how fake and scripted WWE is. But you want to know the worst thing he did the next week after that week's Monday Night Raw 2 years ago, and hence why I had that mental breakdown 2 years ago, and then 2 years later when I made it clear I'm no longer watching this shit no more. I've been wanting to say this for the last 2 years in video vlog form, and I just didn't have the energy or time to do it, or I was just bullshitting to not have the time to talk about it. So what really got on my fucking nerve? If you go back to that Monday Night Raw from March of 2020 with Randy Orton on the 3rd week of that storyline, the 3rd week, and around the time of the shutdown of everything due to COVID forming 2 years ago, WWE Hall of Famer, the Glamazon, Beth Phoenix, she came on to that week's Monday Night Raw on Edge's medical update. That's all we needed. But then the Viper comes out. I have a link in the video description. This is the moment that broke me watching WWE and why I stopped watching as of this year. This is the moment that psychologically and emotionally mortified and traumatized me. Randy Orton comes out talking to Beth about him and Edge and his history and shit. And I know it's part of it was scripted, but I wouldn't give 2/3 a damn if it was scripted or not, because I don't care about WWE or wrestling anymore. I already long given up on TNA. I already long given up on NXT. I don't care about AEW, like I said before. He comes out. If you've seen the clip, as I shared the link from the clip, this part alarmed me. I was 27 years old in the beginning of 2020 at the time, and when the pandemic was starting up here in the States and everywhere else. I was eating Burger King that night when I watched it on my brother's Hulu account while my brother was whatever he was doing in his room that night. Had Burger King, I had a family bundle with Whoppers and stuff that night. Maybe the amount of cholesterol that was in my system that night made me act up that night. And you want to know what really happened after I watched that episode? And after that week's Monday Night Raw and that particular Randy Orton moment, that one moment that made me so mad, and once Beth was there, Randy go say some stuff. I forgot what he said. I don't even want to go back and look at the clip because it's it scarred me. It's that for my grown, then at the time 27-year-old ass, I have never been this psychologically and emotionally scarred by someone on WWE do something like this to my grown ass self. Never. I knew from the moment when Beth wasn't saying anything, and I remember Beth was wearing all black. She was wearing black pants like the black pants I'm wearing. A black shirt but with buttons on that episode, if you've seen it in the clip. He said some stuff about Beth that I didn't like, and I felt some real anger. I felt something was flashing back to me. I just don't understand, why did he do this on the show? Part of it felt like it was real. Of course, wrestling isn't real. It's scripted sports entertainment. He would spout all of this shit to her about how he was going to, another thing that I hated about modern WWE is when you bring up other people's family and when you badmouth their family, you're going to get your ass handed if you talk shit about someone's wife, uncle, husband, mom, dad, sister, brother, whoever. And I don't give a shit if this is scripted. But when you disrespect someone's woman, who I was a fan of when I was a teenager, when the women's division was still known as the Divas division in WWE, until she retired and became a commentator and whatnot. And then you made this woman cry. You got in her face saying some shit like, oh, how Beth is a horrible mother to her and her Edge's kids and shit, and some other crap like that. And then this is what really made me so fucking irate. For the first time in 10 years I've been doing this channel, no one has ever, and I mean ever, have seen me get worked up in live video about this. He said some shit, and when I saw her cry, it made me cry, and I got mad. I got really fucking mad about it. This ain't for no shits and giggles. This ain't me acting out like this is a scripted vlog like how scripted TV actually is. I'm saying this from the heart. From what I had witnessed 2 fucking years ago. When he said that shit, whatever venomous shit that you seen in the clip that I shared in the description, I have to bring this up. I'm like, seriously, Randy, who the hell are you? No, seriously, who the hell are you to put your hands on someone's woman and then you're gonna say that shit to her like that? I don't give a fuck if it was scripted or not. But it really sure looked real to me. And afterwards, she slapped the living fucking shit out of him. She was fuming mad, and his face and skin was getting all bloody red and shit like he went. And when a woman, when she gets upset and when she gets her nerves rattled by a man who wants to get violent, they slapped him in the face. Seen it a handful of times with women on WWE, especially fucking Stephanie. Several times over the years. But what Randy did was disrespectful. And then what happened? She wanted to kick him in his chest, but then what Randy did? He fucking, of all of my years watching this dude wrestle in 20 years, despite I have never been a fan of the Legend Killer his damn self, would he ever put his fucking hands on a woman? In all my years of watching WWE, there have been times if women in wrestling can get out of hand with the men like Stephanie McMahon. But when it was Randy Orton's moment with Beth 2 years ago, and even recently when I heard about what he did to Alexa Bliss last year when Bray Wyatt was still the Fiend until he was fired from WWE in 2021 when I wasn't watching Raw. And when Alexa Bliss went all goth girl and stuff as the Fiend's accomplice. Randy Orton should have never, ever, ever, ever puts his hands on a woman. Same go for any man in the men's locker room in WWE. And I've said this for years in the comments section on Facebook YouTube, Instagram, wherever WWE content is there. And anytime I see that particular moment I was describing, since when have I ever seen Randy Orton put his hands on a female? Yeah, there have been times in the past WWE let some men who put their hands on women even though they're not supposed to. Undertaker did it back when Vicky Guerrero, when Vicky was still GM of SmackDown back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. When Undertaker put his hands on her and rest in peace her and stuff, that has happened. But I was like, what's wrong that I can't get, I come so far watching wrestling for 30 years. You would think in all my years of watching wrestling, ever since Monday Night Raw became a thing in 1993 when I was only a year old, 2 years old and all that shit. And now it's been 30 years coming up and we get the shit like this. Honestly, it was completely inexcusable for Randy Orton, who has been wrestling in WWE since 2002, same time as John Cena and a few other people, would lay his hands on someone who used to wrestle but is a commentator, Hall of Famer, a wife of Edge and has kids with, and then this motherfucker go disrespect her and say some spoutful, venomous fucking shit like that. And shit like this is why I fucking hate Randy Orton. And to think I hated wrestlers of nowadays like Kevin Owens, when you have longtime wrestlers from the 2000s like Randy Orton still in WWE, or other wrestlers I don't like since then, like The Miz or Dolph Ziggler. Randy Orton, of all of the wrestlers that debuted in WWE after the Attitude Era and when Ruthless Aggression began, after seeing how far he had come wrestling in WWE since 2002, or whenever he started, I can care fucking less. I just hate looking at his face. I hate hearing his name. I hate hearing that fucking theme song about hearing voices in my head and they talk to me. Well, guess what, Randy? I have voices in my head and they talk to me too. After I saw that moment, something snapped in me in real life. Much like in this video. And if this video scared you when I lashed out and you screamed, it just goes to show this wasn't me being a passionate wrestling fan. This just goes to show that I'm bringing up something I should have brought up 2 years ago. But I didn't have the time, or I didn't want to make the video because I wasn't sure how people in 2020 would react to me lashing out on a video like that. Wrestling or otherwise. Of all the times I used to vent and rave about the stuff that goes on in my favorite franchise and it's the stuff that it was going through, and so is everything else that goes on in this world. But when it comes to sports, like wrestling with WWE, that shit pissed me off. That's why even after I finished watching, I didn't know what the fuck to think anymore. I used to like Beth Phoenix. She was one of my favorite female wrestlers in WWE. But for Randy Orton and what he did 2 years ago to the Glamazon during their storyline with him and Edge, that was wrong. It was inexcusable. Was it even part of the storyline? Was it intentional? Yeah, of course it was scripted, but like I told my brother about it, and I see why. This is one of the reasons why I stopped watching. This is when I opened up about domestic violence a little bit. Because when I see a man put his hands on women, that makes you into a complete beta bitch. And Randy Orton, and the thing, he was some alpha ass viper. When he puts his hands on women, you realize this is the thing with domestic violence. Even though domestic violence is never, and I repeat, is never okay. Whether if a man puts his hands on women, and same go for if women put their hands on men. But we shouldn't be putting our hands on each other, period. What Randy should have did was walked away from Beth. That's all he had to do. After she bitch slapped the crap out of him. And I don't care if Randy was filming violent blood red, I didn't give a shit. All he had to do, instead of RKOing her, he should have walked out the stage. That's it. Because one of the things that makes me so angry as opposed to abuse between a parent and their child when they get spanked or something, if they get too out of hand with abuse, or even when you have someone's spouse abusing, their child or other spouse. out of addiction, like alcoholism or something like that. I hated that shit. That is why I stopped watching WWE for the remainder of 2020. Until I came back to watch it again, only for Friday Night SmackDown until the end of last year. And then by January this year, I made it clear on social media, I am no longer a wrestling fan. They made clear back sometime in the mid-2000s. And I remember back when I used to play WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 on PlayStation 2. I remember one time I played SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 on PS2 in 2007. My dad came in my room and saw me have a male wrestler. It was a created wrestler, and then a female wrestler was a created superstar also. Created diva also. I remember the last time, and what caught my attention to learn my lesson is not the pit. A male wrestler and a female diva turned women's superstar, women's division wrestler against a man. Now, it made sense in the Attitude Era when Chyna faced whoever she fought at that year's WrestleMania, being the first woman to battle a male wrestler in WWE. But at least we can get away with that with Chyna. But even though Chyna's gone, but they made clear for years, never pit a female employee in WWE with a man wrestler if they're gonna get violent with each other or confrontational with each other. Even though, yeah, with Stephanie McMahon, you get away with it all the time. She can slap whoever disrespects her or Triple H or her especially. Because, you know, that's Stephanie McMahon for you. Beth did what was right because Randy Orton was a fucking scumbag to say the stuff he said about her, Edge, their family, and everything else. I don't even want to look at the clip he did to Alexa Bliss. And that shit was inexcusable in 2021. That's why I didn't want to watch that moment last year on Monday Night Raw at home. Of all the fucking wrestlers that are working in WWE, I don't give a shit if you're doing it for TV. I don't care if you're doing it behind the camera when they're off to commercials. I don't care shit. But who the hell in the writer's room or creative at WWE when doing the Edge and Randy storyline 2 years ago in 2020 thought that was a great fucking idea? I had no idea Beth Phoenix was even married to Edge in real life, even though that's none of my business. Maybe she probably should have did a medical update via some Skype call on the monitor on Monday Night Raw or something and not get attacked by Randy. But, you know, WWE, what's best for business, right? Fuck you, Triple H from 2014. And even now when you say that. And like I've said before, domestic violence is never okay. And what I saw seemed like domestic violence. I meant Edge and Beth are. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up because see, I get riled up talking about this. This is the first. I've waited 2 years to do this rant video. This is the one thing that bothered me about WWE in 2020 2 years ago. This is what bothered, and why me and my brother had a confrontation about it overnight, and that's why I couldn't sleep that night. And I've been talking about it before I even did a video about it. I've tried. I wanted to do it. I waited until it was time that I would finally do the video. But the shit made me so fucking mad. That's why I had to stop watching. And I even called Randy a woman beater. No, I never said it to him personally, but just from some thoughts I posted on Facebook sometime. And then I had a confrontation with a former Facebook friend of mine about it. That's why, this is one of the, this is one of the reasons why I had that mental breakdown. They made a bad disservice putting her in that situation. Even I didn't know Beth Phoenix was married to Edge. I did not know that. But when this asshole puts his hands on another man's wife, this same go for anyone. I don't give a shit if it's on social media or in real life, or even if you do it on live national television. I don't care if it's on cable. But when you go on TV, you put your hands on someone else's woman, you're gonna get your ass handed hard for doing that shit. Because when you beat on women, this is why I lose respect for a man like you. Even I don't give a fuck if I don't know you personally. But when you put your hands on someone's woman, you're gonna get your ass beat. I don't give a fuck if Randy Orton is older than me. Just like Kevin Owens. I don't give a fuck if Randy Orton is some 40-year-old man and I'm a fucking man-child living at home. He had no damn business putting his hands on Beth Phoenix in 2020 and then last year, Alexa Bliss. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you, Randy. And this is one of the reasons why I stopped watching WWE as of this year. I stopped following anything wrestling related. Now you can call me a fucking whiny man, baby, pussy ass motherfucking Negro about it, but the truth is, this was the moment that broke me as a wrestling fan. But you can't excuse that. That was 2 years ago. Randy's dealing with whoever. I don't give a fuck. I will never forgive WWE for allowing this asshole on the show to put his hands on those two women. A former female wrestler turned Hall of Famer and a current modern day female wrestler in the women's division right now. In a way, yes, I have lost my cool. I wish I did this video 2 years ago. I had to stop watching Monday Night Raw because of Randy Orton and what he did 2 years ago. I don't care if it was 2 years ago. It's still relevant to me 2 years later. I do not want to make this look like I'm doing some video message to Randy Orton if he was watching. This is just a little rant video. I'm not doing it just to attack him or anything. This is just a little personal thought of how I feel. Besides facts like the reason I stopped watching wrestling is because Monday Night Raw, ever since 2013, since their 1000th episode, 20th anniversary, they started doing 3-hour-long episodes. The stipulations and the matches are drawn out and boring. And plus, you know, let me know in the comments what's your factors why you stopped watching wrestling. Because this here is one of the factors why wrestling is dead to me. Not because of certain wrestlers I used to like passed away, like Daphne or Razor Ramon or whoever. Because I lost all respect for Randy Orton. I have never been a fan of that man. I don't even want to know that man personally. I do not want to go to a wrestling convention. If I see Randy Orton, if I ever do go to a wrestling convention, I'm just going to ignore him. I don't give a shit if he was a U.S. Marine. I know he was a U.S. Marine before he became a pro wrestler in WWE. His father, Bob Orton, was a wrestler. I don't give a shit what goes on with that man now on Monday Night Raw. If he ever, and when they do this draft, when WWE every year in October, they do drafts. If they put Randy on SmackDown, I'm done. Even though I'm not even watching that no more either. I'm just done. I'm fucking done. Cause he had no damn business doing what he did to her. Although I don't even know Beth Phoenix personally. I don't know anybody from WWE personally. I follow some of them on social media. At the point it's time I stopped following them or following anything wrestling related. When I saw him put his hands on her, I didn't know what to think. And then after the episode ended, my brother and I had a fight. We argued. This was around the same week COVID-19 was shutting down the whole world then. Me and my brother started having a major rift. Even though my brother doesn't even watch WWE anymore. I still did at that point. And I told him, when WrestleMania is over, it was 2 years ago, but when WrestleMania comes up, I'm going on a very long hiatus from wrestling for a while. And you happy about that? Even you stopped watching wrestling. Well, that's your problem if you stop watching wrestling. But that's what I told him 2 years ago. And then he had an argument about, well, yeah, just because he put his hands on her doesn't mean, like, geez, you didn't even make a big deal about it. And I told him, you know what? And I told my brother about this. If you dated a girl, and if you had some Randy Orton looking dude put his hands on a girl or disrespect her, what you gonna do about it then? What you gonna do about it then if he puts his hands on your girl one day? How would you feel about that? How would you feel if some punk ass Randy Orton looking guy come to your girlfriend and disrespect? What you gonna do? You have to defend your woman from someone who wants to be an asshole to the damn woman. You should realize that. If someone's going to disrespect your girlfriend, sister, wife, anyone, you cut them off. I know that if you do some physical violence outside compared to like that Disneyland fight that I saw from 3 years ago, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get locked up if you physically fight someone. If someone's going to talk shit about your wife or girlfriend like that, you beat their ass. You only hit them once and then walk away. And they'll then learn not to be an asshole or disrespect your wife or girlfriend or sister, anybody female that you're related to, ever. Because a man like that, a man like Randy Orton in WWE and what he did on TV, I don't give a shit if it was on TV. But what he did to Edge's woman and what he did later to Alexa Bliss was unforgivable. And I shame WWE for allowing Randy Orton do stuff like that. Even though Randy Orton has always been a fucking heel, he never was a babyface or kayfabe. He was always a villainous viper because vipers and snakes are associated with evil. Like Cobra, the Cobra organization in G.I. Joe. A ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world, that cartoon's narration about the premise of that says. So I don't understand why the hell they had to allow that shit. when they were still TV PG. You had soccer moms with their kids watching that shit. How does women that were watching wrestling at home felt seeing that man put his hands on someone else's wife? How would you feel if you had some Randy Orton looking man do that to your wife or your girlfriend? How would you feel about that, people out there with girlfriends and wives? How you feel about that? You're just gonna let the guy do that? You have to stand up for your woman and beat the man's ass for that. But even though you're gonna risk getting locked up for it, you're gonna get locked up for assault and battery. If you go somewhere where there isn't many people around, but I know probably even in that area you won't do that either. So how are you gonna handle it? How are you gonna handle confrontation with the man if he's gonna disrespect a woman or your woman, whether it be your girlfriend or wife or any other female accomplice, like, or a family member related to you, like if someone's going to disrespect your sister, mother or grandmother like that, or aunt or godmother like that. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? How the heck that makes me feel? Even though I'm not married, I'm not in a relationship right now or any of that, I don't think I will. But after what I just saw from that man, what I saw from Randy Orton was unforgivable on TV and WWE. I refused, and that's why I stopped watching wrestling. Wrestling had already been dead to me from the moment I saw that. But before anyone in the comments tell me, chill out, bro, it was just only on TV. No, fuck that shit. You don't know what that shit is like on TV. Have you ever been on TV? Have you ever been to a WWE arena and witnessed that in action in person? Have you ever had your ass whooped by a woman? If a female wrestler want to slap you in the face? If you want to be a disrespectful little prick? How does that make you feel? I did went on long enough. I know this video from the wrestling fans are going to, at this point, it's bad enough my channel is dying. I have to make this video. I have to say it. So yeah, wrestling is dead to me. WWE is fucking dead to me. And that right there was the reason WWE died to me. I know it's stupid for me to act out the way I did on this video, just like I did a video or so before, years back, like this. But at 30 years old, 10 years of doing YouTube, and for someone who was doing both Power Rangers and some occasional content about like wrestling or whatever, that shit really made me fucking sick. It made me sick to my stomach, to the point I had to change the channel. Fuck Randy Orton and WWE. Wrestling is dead to me now. Dead. I know I'm going to have a lot of uproar in the comments and stuff, I know. But it's just this rate. I've waited to make this video for 2 years. Ever since the pandemic started. I'm sick of WWE. I'm sick of the stipulations they've been doing that's been drawn out and boring. Even if they went TV 14 again after Vince retired, I can care less about that too. You can keep on with WWE video games and buying toys and all that, but to me, wrestling, after 30 years of my life with it, it's over. It's over. It's over.